Hey there, Craig. Happy Finance Friday. It's the South Florida Mortgage Report.
Glad to be here, Bill.
Yeah, I'm coming to you from a different location today, coming to you from beautiful downtown Wilton Manors, actually on location at Starbucks.
Exciting. Man about town.
Yeah, out and about today. And, it's really cool because when you're out here and get some coffee, get to talk to different people and ask some questions. Hey, what do you think is going on in the real estate market? So some of the answers are interesting, but it's all good stuff.
That's awesome. That's awesome. Glad you got out of. I've been stuck in the dungeon today,
Yeah.
just pounding away. So
Yeah. I'm usually like that too, but once in a while we got to get out and
yeah,
get
it's
to
good.
head east from suburbia and check out the life downtown Fort Lauderdale, so to speak. So it's all good stuff. So we got our usual stuff we're gonna talk about. We're gonna talk about mortgage rates, which is great, interesting news, right, Craig?
Yes, sir. Yes, sir.
Yeah. And then also we're gonna talk about some other topics, kind of a hot topic about kind of redos or fixer uppers and things of that nature. So good stuff today, I think, right?
Yeah. I'm excited for some of these, for some of the topics. But so what's going on with mortgage rates this week, Bill?
Yeah, the Freddie Mac survey comes out and it says that rates are at their lowest point in just over a year. I mean, the national average is like 6.19%. And so it's really, really good news in that regard. And then we have some big reports this morning, Greg, and we haven't had any kind of government reports come out because of the government shutdown. We're up to 24 days and counting now, right? But we had a report come out this morning, and so far it's helping mortgage rates, right?
Yeah. We had two interesting things, kind of developments, I would say, as far as interest rates. So today, the first economic report that we've had in a while that's of any significance, the Consumer Price Index, was released, and it was good news. So no whammies. The inflation was less than expected. The bond market reacted fairly positively. The stock market reacted positively. Everybody likes less than expected inflation. So it's a good day in the financial markets. When that happens, lets the markets feel like, hey, the Fed, can feel a little bit better about lowering rates. So, so hopefully, so that track is still, on course, so to speak, for now. So that was good.
Yeah. So mortgage rates, good news in that. Like you said, they're kind of getting close to that 6% range, but they seem to get below. You had mentioned the bond market. As mortgage guys, we always kind of watch that bond market. It's still below 4 right now, and that's
Yeah,
looking good. And then
that's right.
there's a lot of other factors influence rates. You and I were talking earlier, and you talked about oil. A lot of people don't realize that oil can have an impact on mortgage rates, and in addition to many other things in our life. But tell us about oil and what your thoughts are on oil and mortgages, so to speak.
Yeah, I have to say, as long as we've been doing this, nobody really has a total handle on everything in the markets, and it's just wild how many different things impact what goes into mortgage rates. It's not like the Fed sets mortgage rates. Definitely not. The financial markets set the rates, and something that came up this week that started impacting rates a little bit, wasn't on my radar, was that there's this a bit of a relationship over time between oil and interest rates. And that this week, what kind of started the conversation and impacted the bond markets a little bit negatively for a short period of time was this renewed pressure that's trying to get put by different countries on Russia and putting extra sanctions on oil companies related to Russia, trying to hit them in the pocketbook, and get them to, to try to, pressure them into, backing off on this war. And that could lead to higher oil prices. And then, higher oil prices, everybody needs energy. The world
Yeah.
runs on energy. And so when you've got more expensive energy, that bleeds into everything, and that impacts inflation, things that
Yes.
the price that people pay for everything.
Yeah. I
And
mean,
so
yeah. Oil is in everything. Look at all these plastics. Everything. Oil affects everything for sure.
yeah. And so yeah, no, not only in just energy, but to your point, it's in all these products too. And so so I thought that was pretty interesting. It didn't seem to have legs, but it is another thing where if that situation, starts getting a little more interesting and the price of oil gets more volatile, you
Yeah.
could see it bleed into and be a part of the Fed's thinking when it comes to, hey, are we comfortable lowering rates? Because they would like to lower rates, they just don't want there to be more inflation.
Yeah.
So
And
You
that
know, so if
market,
there's
the
if
CPI,
more,
no, the CPI number this morning really helped us out for sure.
yeah, no, it's great news. And so, we'll see what happens with the shutdown. Hopefully they'll figure that out sooner than later. And we'll have to just see what other type of economic reports are potential to be released when they get back
Yeah.
on track. or not. So yeah,
Yeah, and then I know like some of the different sites I take a look at and talk about oil, and I think a barrel of oil, the price like $62, $65. It's kind of that nice spot apparently, and if it starts shooting up to 75, $80 a barrel, and that's when we don't like that type of stuff, and it can affect negatively all different types of factors in the economy, including mortgage rates, of course. But I
yeah,
guess we'll see what happens. And so the Fed's meeting next Wednesday, right?
correct, correct. So we'll have some news there. They'll be operating and making decisions based off of less data than they usually have. And so it'll be interesting to see what they do. I think everybody's breathing a little bit of a sigh of relief that the one report that came out, isn't
Right.
something that's going to be worrisome to them in and of itself. So,
Yeah.
so fingers crossed that they don't come out and lay the smack down. But not anticipating that, but we have to see.
It doesn't appear that way. And if the rates keep trending downwards, we're in a really good market, especially for first and home buyers right now. There's more inventory. We talk about this, seems like each week, more inventory right now. Rates are good. They're getting low. We still have down payment assistance. And another thing too is that we talk about, especially in our South Florida market, is that we could have something happen here soon in New York. And we never really talk about politics, but there's a mayoral race in New York. And a lot of people are saying, hey, you know what? If the front runner wins, there could be a lot of New Yorkers who want to leave the area. They might be coming back down to South Florida. If that happens, we'll have a lot more home buyers here in South Florida, and it'll make it a more competitive market as well. So, if you are somebody that's looking to buy a house right now, you might want to consider really looking because there could be some news here in the next couple of weeks and plus it's the winter time coming up and the snowbirds are coming down. And so a lot more home buyers will be in the market here probably the next 5 to 6 weeks out in South Florida, at least from what I see.
Yeah, I mean, it would be pretty interesting if you have a big regime shift up there, and based on politics, it drives some people away. Plus, combine it with some really cold winter. Yeah, we'll have more people
Yep.
here, and if DeSantis gets his way and abolishes property taxes here, then you know,
That's a whole
um,
nother
you know,
thing that can happen next year. I mean, if that gets through next year and it gets on the ballot, gets passed, and they abolish property taxes on homestead properties, oh my gosh, that would be a boon to Florida homeowners down here. Really kind of crazy
yeah.
stuff, and that
So
there's a good chance that could
I
happen.
think I think what we're kind of saying is there are some of these interesting things that could make it more challenging if the idea if somebody's listening to this, they have an idea. I'm just going to wait until rates get better before I get in and buy a house. Those could be things that actually put pressure back on home prices here if
Yeah,
stuff like that happens. I
yeah,
think there's a bit of a road to go before we get there, but you know these things could happen. I mean,
yeah.
there are things that so
Yeah, yeah, and really for first time home buyers, it really never makes sense to rent unless you really have to, because what are you going to do? You're going to try to wait and save more money. Rates going to be higher next year, so even the money that you saved to put on a down payment is going to be negligible, not much of a difference. And if it's going to be your primary home, it's always a good time to buy, especially in South Florida, like we say. So good stuff. So I know in the coming next coming weeks on our podcast, we've talked to some of our referral partners. We're going to start having some guests on our podcast. They're going to give us some really good information. These are guests that real partners that we work with that we know very well. They're very well respected in the marketplace. They do a lot of data analysis to see what's going on. I'm really interested to see that. We're not going to name any names, but I believe next Friday we'll have a guest next Fridays.
yeah, no, and we had a nice chat with a gentleman today who's a kind of an estate planning and strategy attorney, which I
That's
think will
right.
be very interesting for conversation when we have that. And I think that'll be pretty interesting too. I'm excited to hear some of what he has to say. So yeah,
Absolutely. Our
no,
pod
should be
our
fun.
podcast is growing by leaps and bounds. We're getting tons and tons of views on our shorts and everything. And it's just great. I'm seeing a lot of shorts here today in beautiful South Florida weather because it's nice and warm out here today. So
The weather's getting nice. It's getting
yes,
nice.
weather is getting nice. So but all right. So let's talk about, you said one of the searches that we see in the market is people are looking for fixer upper homes, right?
Yeah, I saw a stat that said that there are three times the number of searches for fixer-upper properties than there have been in the past few years. or that what there or than what there was a couple of years ago. And so I thought, and I'm hearing more about this, and we're getting questions about property conditions and stuff. So I thought this is a good topic for us today to kind of just touch base on. And there's a lot to this because we've got
For
loan
sure.
programs that can help you buy properties and things like that. And I think we'll save that for another day. But I thought today, let's talk about if you're a buyer and you're an agent and you're walking through a property, what are the things that you should be aware of that you see that could come up that could either be something that needs to be fixed in order for you to close on a regular mortgage,
Right.
or that a lender would really have a problem with, and just kind of talk through some of those examples. And I'm sure you've seen, plenty of those
Sure.
scenarios over
Yeah.
time.
Well, I think one of the common things too is that if someone has to replace a roof, and I just learned this recently. I'm not sure we discussed it, but you couldn't get homeowners insurance if the roof didn't have a 5-year expectancy on it. Well, Citizens, a state-backed insurance company, last year says, well, listen, if you can replace that roof in 60 days, we can close on the home. You're going to get everything good to go, and as long as you get that roof done in the 60 days after you close, that will work. Well, Citizens recently came out in the past couple weeks is saying we're only going to give you 30 days after you close to put a new roof on. And after you close, you got to get a roofer out there, you got to get permits. There's a lot of stuff that's got to occur. So I think what's going to happen now is part of our inventory is these sellers who have these homes with roofs. Listen, that's not going to be as attractive to a buyer that has to finance because they may not be able to get insurance. And so that's just one thing that someone may look for in a home. But I know you want to talk maybe what are some other things that when a home buyer or agent's out to look at a house, what
Well,
else can kind of cause issues here?
Well, let's stay on the roof topic for a second because I think
Sure.
one of the conceptions is, I mean, somebody might think, hey, well, there's a problem with the roof, so I can't get an FHA loan, so I have to get a conventional loan. Well,
Yeah.
I have news for you. If there is a problem with the roof, a conventional loan cares also. Now, what happens is usually it's not like as part of a normal mortgage process. A home buyer will get an inspection, right? And they're gonna that inspection is designed to tell the buyer, hey, here's all the stuff in the property that you're gonna probably want to be aware of that you might need to fix in a certain time period. Um, we don't get that. I mean, there's more information on there than we would want to probably see. Um, what we would be concerned about as the lender is when our appraiser goes out to the property if you go out to the property and there's a blue tarp on the roof, that's gonna be a problem, and
Yeah.
that's gonna
Blue
be
tarp is
that's
red flag. Yeah, for sure.
very, very, apparent, and, yeah, and lenders are not gonna want you to close with a leak in the roof. That is the lenders by nature, very conservative. They do not and I'm talking about on regular loans, not these specialty loans that are designed to help you fix a property. That's something else. But a regular loan that 90% of people get, the property is, the lender's not interested in getting involved in your rehab project. You know what I mean? Unless it's one of those other loans. So, blue tarp on the roof, you walk into the property and you see stains on the ceiling. That's a red flag. Usually, what
For
an
sure.
appraiser's going to do is they're going to say, okay, I see stains, could be a roof leak. I'm not a roofer, but I'm going to condition my appraisal to call for you to get a roof inspection. And then that roof inspection is going to tell us, hey, is this roof okay? It could be that they had a leak and there's a stain there, which is just cosmetic, but the repair has been fixed. The roof inspection would tell you that. So, so that's so cosmetic stuff is typically not going to be an issue, right? But anything that would affect, and there's these three S's. The lenders want to know the property safe, sound, and secure. So anything that would make it unsafe, unsound, or insecure is going to be something that a lender's probably going to want to see addressed before they let you close. So what might be something? I mean, what's an example that you can think of, Bill, that would fall into there?
Well, I can tell you I just recently reviewed a home inspection. One thing I see is very common is people or homeowners they'll double tap what's called double tap an electrical panel, where they may have another appliance or something else that the electrician or supposed electrician will run some wires into the electrical panel, and it's kind of hot wired, so to speak, in one of the circuits. You really can't do that. You have to set up another circuit breaker on the panel to do that. I see that that's very, very common. Insurance companies will not insure unless that's fixed prior to closing, and the
Interesting.
seller has to get that done. Yeah, I see that very, very common, especially down here because, well, it's like in South Florida, most of the homes, especially in Broward County, the average has got to be what, 30, 40 years old at least. Most of the homes, especially in the east side of town, probably 60 years old. Electrical panels might be even that old. And so over time, people have added on a room or added on this, and they've kind of done stuff. So that's a key one right there. I would say electrical panels is probably the biggest one that I see. Obviously, you said roof. Those are the two big ones. Wood rot, you see that once in a while. VA is the one loan product that you can't have any type of you need a super clear termite report, no issues. You know what I mean?
Yeah,
Um,
yeah. So that's before we get off electric, I would say, if you are walking through the property and somebody has, removed something and you see this exposed wiring, that is something that certainly a lender usually will look at that and they'll go, hey, that's a safety issue.
yeah,
Usually that's a really simple thing. Just have somebody put a cap on top of that. You know what I mean? So there's just no more exposed wires. Stuff like that. That's going to be, and a lot of times this stuff is pretty simply fixed.
yeah,
Unless you get bigger problems.
true,
So
true. Yeah,
you could have something like a big crack in the foundation of the property or something like that. Certainly, if there's something like that that's apparent, that would be a challenge. Cracks in the outside of the home, I mean, that looks like the house is settling. I mean, I have a family member that their home was settling. They actually had to put pilings in underneath the house.
yes,
So a lender, if something like that's very apparent, that would be something that would come up.
right,
I don't think that's very common, but it can happen.
true.
Um, Other things that would come up in a property.
Yeah, well, I would see if a windows, there's been times, especially in Dade County, there might be bars in the window on the outside. And if that's a safety feature because if there's a fire inside the home, that people won't be able to break the window to get out. Um,
That's right. If you've
yeah,
got bars over the way, I would say we'd see that more often in Dade. I would say, over the years. Not that I remember seeing it anytime recently, but yeah, if you had a bedroom, there are bars, and you can't escape out of there. If there was a fire in the house, they would consider that a safety thing and ask you to get that removed in order to close. Other things, listen. Sometimes you might walk into a property and there's no kitchen, right?
yeah,
Uh, that's going to be an issue. Appliances, different story. You don't necessarily
right,
have to have appliances. That's not typically the case, but usually the minimum for a kitchen, for example, is a sink with running water. If
yeah,
you would definitely need that. If you have one cabinet that's missing, that might not be a showstopper.
right.
Um, if you have one piece of the bathroom that's missing, that you might be able to get away with something like that. But
I
yeah,
got
big
I got one
issues.
for you. I got one. Speaking of
Go
bathroom, I have
ahead.
one for you. So I
Yeah.
have one where it's a deal I just took in. As a matter of fact, a brand new home, never been lived in. But what happened is when one of the bathrooms, the tile did a very, very bad job on the tile. So they've actually literally have taken up the tile in the tile and the what's it called, the pan, whatever, the shower pan.
Okay.
Yeah, and so it's in the contract that it has to be completed prior to closing. So,
There you go.
the listing agent called me up. It's like, hey, is this gonna be an issue? It's gonna be fixed pretty soon here, but I don't want the appraiser to go out there and see that the shower. So what are your thoughts on that, Craig? If the
Well,
shower,
it's
is it
it's
complete
interesting
yet?
because in that case, usually an appraiser is going to follow whatever the contract says, right? And so if the contract is calling for something to be repaired ahead of time, then the appraiser is going to put that as part of his report, and he's going to do his report subject to those repairs. And then usually you're going to send somebody out. He's going to go back out and confirm that got done, so that he's got that final report in the file for the closing. So that's pretty cut and dry. A lot of times we get questions about things. We get this fixed after the closing, and usually stuff like that. I mean, that's where we get into this conversation about, hey, what's going to be at your discretion versus what is the lender going to require. So changing carpet, you know what I mean? That's not going to be a big deal unless the carpet is so bad and moldy and that's a safety issue. Um, so cosmetic stuff, that's usually the
Right.
buyer's choice. You can have an ugly
True.
home that's totally fine for regular
Right.
financing.
Oh yeah,
But
yeah.
if the doors don't work or don't lock, you know what I mean, and
Right.
you get this unsecure home, then maybe that's something like that has to be fixed. And then to your point, most of the time we don't need a termite inspection. Most people get a termite inspection. Um, you do need it if you're getting a VA loan. But sometimes the appraiser will see some wood rot that they might feel they need to elaborate on, and then you might need a termite inspection, and then you might need to, repair some wood rot. Um, some older homes, if you're getting an FHA loan, if you've got peeling paint, they
Oh
might
yeah.
say, "Hey, there's somebody had some lead paint," and believe it or not, they might say you have to fix that peeling paint. But
Oh
we don't
yeah.
see a
They do
lot,
that.
but
Yeah, yeah. I had one last year that we originally did a conventional loan, and then we had to change it, and it was a mess. Went to FHA, and they had cleaned it all up. But when they pressure cleaned the house before they painted, all the peeled paint was all over the yard. So the picture,
interesting.
when the appraiser went out to re-inspect, he's like, "Oh, you painted the house. That's great." For all these paint chips were all over the yard. So the seller was out there
Yeah, back
vacuuming the
back
paint
in the
chips in.
day
Yeah.
way back in the day, they used to make the paint that had some lead in it. It was a safety concern, and so some of these old homes, if they've got some of that paint way in there, or the potential is that they do, then that's they consider that a safety issue.
But we are seeing more of that, and I think what you want to get to, and eventually we'll get to in a future podcast, is really talk about those renovation loan products, right?
Yeah, yeah, because if you are really looking to buy a house and you cannot get a regular loan on it today because there are repairs that have to get made, the seller's not going to make them. You don't want to make them because you don't own the property yet. There are programs where you can buy the house as it is, even though you can't get a regular loan. You can get a loan to buy the house and get a loan to fix it up. There's just a process where they have to wrap in a contractor who gets approved. There's money that gets set aside to pay the contractor to make sure that job gets done. The contractor's got to be somebody with, credentials, with a track record. They get approved themselves. The contractor does, and the plans get approved, and the home gets appraised as if those repairs were already done. So it's a great program. We'll get into that more in depth, but I just figured let's talk about some of these red flags when you're walking through a property today.
Yeah.
Um, and little stuff. We talked about appliances before. If you're getting an FHA loan, if there are appliances in the property, they do need to work. So in other words, FHA doesn't require you to have a stove in the house, but if there is a stove and it's not working, you could get a condition that says that the stove needs to be replaced. So it's just one of those little quirky things.
Yep.
Um,
Air
yeah,
conditioning,
and I'm just
I've seen them with air conditioning. Hey, they run it for a while. It's not cooling properly. I've seen that when they actually noted it in the appraisal. It just wasn't working properly that day, and they had to go back. It's been a long time since I had that happen, but it did happen one time where they had to go back after it was fixed.
yeah, yep, yep. Anything else that's coming to mind on the property condition stuff that you
Well,
get
one thing,
questions about?
yeah, I mean, just once in a while, people think when they have an FA, if it's FHA or VA, because on FHA and VA, they are especially more heightened awareness on the safety issues. I have seen that.
Yep,
If the sliders don't open or something, they might note it. Hey, I couldn't get this sliding glass door open or something like that. Definitely things to be aware of for certain. Yeah, those are the
sure,
main things I
sure.
usually hear about. So roof, electrical stuff like that.
Yeah, and maybe it's a good thing just to kind of have this awareness that, hey, there could be something in the property that, either the seller needs to fix it, and if you already know walking in that the seller's not fixing anything,
Yeah.
then it could be an issue with you whether you close. Talk to your lender, talk to us, try to get a feel for what the issue is and whether it can be if it's going to be a big impediment or not. But it's good to know that, hey, not all properties are created equal, and not all properties are lendable just exactly the way they are. So
That's true. That's true. When I was thinking here in my head, I was thinking, what is we see down here a lot is mold. Because there's always mold down here. It's always damp and everything. Sometimes people are like, they see a little bit of mold. Oh, I gotta get a big mold inspection, and then these mold inspectors, they'll find humidity in the Mojave Desert. You know what I mean? So you know, they seem
yeah.
to find it everywhere if they want to. So, but that is a huge thing with mold. I see a lot of times too. Black mold.
Yeah. So yeah, certainly. Well, we haven't seen too many of those not that have come across my desk, thankfully. So,
Yeah,
but I'm sure they're out
exactly.
there.
So, yes, they are. Well, good stuff. Yeah, so we talked about. So we're gonna ramp up for our future podcast. We're doing some more information, more deep dive into renovation loans. Kind of like last week, we did a deep dive into the condo lending. That'll be good stuff.
Yeah.
We do have some great guests coming on in the future. We're gonna be looking forward to that. And we're getting hundreds and hundreds of more views on our worldwide podcast. The South Florida Mortgage Report's on Apple, it's on Spotify, we're on the YouTube channel, posting on Facebook. We're getting all over the place, so it's all good stuff. So you got any big plans for this weekend other than watch the sacrificial lambs known as the Miami Dolphins play football this weekend, Craig?
Wow. The good news, I don't have to really even be concerned about watching them anymore. So it frees up a few hours of my weekend, which is nice. But
It was terrible.
no big
It was
plans.
terrible. Oh my God, they
Yeah.
lost. They got beat by the Cleveland Browns, for God's sakes. I mean, Cleveland is
They got
horrendous.
by the
Totally
Cleveland
shellacked.
Cleveland Browns.
Yeah.
Yeah,
Yeah,
yeah, yeah. So
yeah, it was bad. And our Seminoles, what happened to them? They started off beating Alabama at the beginning of the year. They can't beat anybody right now. So
I think I actually said that day, I said, I really think I did say this. I said, they should really just end the season right now.
yeah,
It's
yeah.
it's not gonna get any better than that. It was a great day. So
Man,
I didn't
I
think it would be
know.
that prophetic, but yeah,
No,
we've fell on black days. So
nah,
yes.
that's okay. It's okay. It's all good
Yeah.
stuff. We're kind of par for the course being a Dolphins fan. So, all right, listen, sounds good. You have a great weekend, and look forward to getting
You too.
rolling again on Monday. So, all right, sounds good, Craig. We'll wrap it up, and we will see you at the
Closing table.
closing table. All right, sounds good,
All right.
Craig.
Thanks,
Have
bud.
a great weekend. See ya.
You too.
Bye. Bye.